There's a book out called The Boys of '67, and it's about Charlie Company from Vietnam and the things they went through and the things they have gone through since, because they adjusted well and they've become very successful men in the United States, in the community, and several of them live in Santa Clarita and the Antelope Valleys and San Fernando Valleys. And so we're going to have on with us Bill Reynolds and Larry Lilley from The Boys of '67.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and that's
really excited
and
about that.
And the book is being turned into a documentary, a major documentary. I forget. Bill's going to have to help me, but there's one of the major cable networks. He'll tell me, and we'll get that figured out.
That's so great.
This, The Boys of '67, a book that is written by Dr. Andrew Wiest, is about a specific company that trained together, they were drafted together, and they went to Vietnam all together. And so we're joined by Bill Reynolds, Larry Lilley from Charlie Company. And this was, what was interesting to me when we were talking during the break, guys, because I'd asked, what was it about your company that made you guys special enough to warrant a book, to warrant a documentary that's going to be coming out on National Geographic next year, I believe it is. And you mentioned that it was that uniqueness of everybody coming together at the same time, going through Fort Riley, Kansas at the same time. You guys really bonded.
Yeah. We were all of the same age, drafted, trained. In my case, we had elementary school, high school, college, then drafted. So we went to Fort Riley, trained together for almost 8 months or so, thereabouts, and then we were shipped out to Vietnam as a unit. That was not a common occurrence. Everybody was trained in other parts of the country and went in as individual replacements. So they went in as strangers. We went in after we had bonded.
And you were saying that, and this was in 1967, right?
We were drafted, most of us were drafted on May 17th, 1966.
Okay.
And so our training went through the remainder of that year, and we went over to Vietnam on a World War II troop ship in January. And so our tour duty began when we arrived in late January '67.
And you were saying that you were convinced that the war was going to be over at the end, by the end of that year, because you were sending the entire infantry division over there.
Exactly. You know, what was interesting is that when we shipped out, we left Fort Riley on a train. We called it a troop train. And there was a 9th Infantry Division band there playing rah-rah music, great military music. And when we got to the dock in Oakland, California, we got off that train to load on the troop ship. That band was right there playing that same old music. And we were gung-ho, it was so cool. And so for two and a half weeks later, we get off the boat on the beach of South Vietnam, and there that band is playing again, and it's like, wow, you know? it's like we knew that this is going to be history in a year.
Be a cakewalk. Going to be a cakewalk.
Yeah, and then it wasn't a cakewalk.
No.
And then it was brutal. And yeah, we're fortunate. We're very fortunate that Dr. Andrew Wiest chose to write this book. It came by pure happenstance. He happened to come in contact with, at the University of Southern Mississippi, one of our platoon fellows, John Young, who helped him in his classes at the university. And John would tell him about Charlie Company. And so Dr. Wiest came to one of our reunions in Washington, D.C. in 2006. He addressed the audience. We had 150 people in the room. And he said, I want to write a book about you guys, and I'll be calling you on the phone. And so he did. He called a lot of us and interviewed us for hours and hours on the phone. And then 6 years later, here's the book.
You know, I was thumbing through the book before we started rolling, and I was just captivated. And there was a certain letter in there that I was reading where a young man at the time wrote a letter home and said, I'm sure you've heard by now, I've been shot. I was just so captivated. At the end, he put, P.S. I received a medal, the Purple Heart.
Yeah.
And I think about those times when there weren't those communications of cell phones and internet and all those things. And I mean, I wasn't alive then, and all I know is what I've seen in the movies. So when I watch a movie like Platoon, is that realistic to what you guys went through?
Platoon was about as factual as it was for us. It was pretty intense. And talking about getting the Medal of the Purple Heart, I just received mine a year and a half ago, 45 years after the fact.
Why did it take so long?
Well, a couple of years ago, Bill had a dinner at his house, and a bunch of us Army buddies got together. had a dinner, and he took us down to a play called
Welcome Home
Welcome
Soldier.
Home Soldier. I cried like a stinking baby. I mean, it really got to me. But after that morning, we had a farewell breakfast the next morning. He passes out a paper and says, fill this form out, and the Department of Defense will send you any medals you didn't know you were getting. Well, how can that be? So my wife filled it out, mailed it off, and 6 months later, I asked her, I said, did you ever hear back from those people? She goes, no. I said, well, don't worry about it. And then, unbeknownst to me, 2 days before Christmas, she gets a box full of medals.
Wow.
One of them was my Purple Heart.
Wow.
That is so awesome. That is great. You know, when we're talking to you guys, and we're so many years, you know, beyond the actual war, and I see the emotions in your eyes, and I see you tear up, and it's making me tear up.
Yeah.
And it's so, like, people don't understand. And that's when you hear, like in our opening segment, when we're talking about taking God and America away from us.
Oh, drives me crazy. You know, that I can tell you that there were many times laying out there on the battlefield with guys shot up all around, artillery's coming in, and you pray to God that you're going to make it. And I tell you, people who don't believe in God, put them in combat. They'll believe in God.
Yeah.
Get religion real fast.
Larry, you were saying that it was miraculous that you guys got out of there. I mean, both of you guys were wounded. Both of you guys are Purple Hearts. And to me, one of the most amazing things about this story is the bonding that you guys had and how close you were. There's a picture in the book, I want to show it right now, where there's your friend that you grew up with.
Yeah.
And you saw him get killed.
He was in about a 10-foot fiberglass boat that was used in small water inlets, and there's a small tributary that he was up, and he was supposed to stay even with us as we marched across this rice paddy. He got out there about 60, 70 yards, and I called him on the radio and said, turn that damn boat around. And that started June 19th.
Mm.
A big bomb went off, a big claymore mine. I saw the blast. I ducked behind a rice paddy dike. I look up. He's gone. Mm. I'm thinking he's dead in the boat. Facts happen I was unaware of until I read the book. He was blown out of the boat, floated by the river right in front of me, and I couldn't see him. Mm. Goes down another 70 yards, and another friend of mine, Larry Lukes, attempts to pull him out of the water, and he can't. And he had been shot enough that he knew he was going to die, and he looked Larry Lukes right in the eye and said, let me go, I'm going to die. Mm. Wow. And they let him go, and our resupply boats picked him up. Mm. But that started it.
Yeah, I was walking point that day for Charlie Company, so I was way out in advance of the unit. The squad I was with, we were out there pretty far when the shooting started. And as soon as, you know, you're trained, as soon as the bullet goes off, you hear it, you hit the ground. And I realized when I hit the ground that, my God, I'm out here in the wide open and there's bullets flying everywhere. And I thought, I got to get back to that rice paddy dike that I had just stepped over about 50 yards back. So I got up and started running like crazy back for cover. And I could see everybody in the company running towards this berm. And the reason Larry couldn't see Kenny is because there was a berm next to that creek, and the VC were like 25 yards across on the other side in reinforced bunkers, whereas we were caught out in the open. Now, we were looking for them, so we don't really consider it an ambush because we were trying to find these guys, and we did. Unfortunately, they had better position, and we started losing guys, you know, right away. But I'll never forget running back there as fast as I could, get back to my buddies and get down behind that berm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I have a question for you as I'm looking at the plaque here, and we have KIA for killed in action, mm-hmm. correct? You have one MIA for Ronald.
Right. Well,
is that something that you guys think about daily?
I think about Ron Schwar a lot. Ron Schwar was one of the guys drafted on May 17th. He was with us all the way through until April when he was lost. And what happened there with him is that the squad was crossing a river, and one of our helicopters came around the bend coming down the river, and he spotted the guys in the water, and he opened up thinking they were VC. Everybody scrambled for cover, and my lieutenant, Lieutenant Jack Benedict, got on the radio and started yelling at this guy, you know, get the hell out of here or I'll shoot you out of the sky. And so he, you know, he left. But meanwhile, everybody's saying, hey, where's Ron? He was a non-swimmer. And he was gone. And so Jack went into the water. He just kept going into the water trying to find him and never did find him. So he was considered MIA in the military records for 1 year. And they finally considered him then KIA after a year. But for us, he's still MIA because we never found his body.
And this plaque, by the way, one of the guys in Charlie Company created one for all of the surviving guys who came back, and this is to honor the, it says, in memory of my fallen brothers at the very top, Charlie Company, 4th Battalion, 47th Infantry, 9th Infantry Division. And by the way, just to illustrate your point, Larry, you talked about that was the beginning of June 19th when your buddy was blown up in the boat. I counted, there's 11 guys here that lost their lives that day, and that was, that looks to have been the worst day for Charlie Company.
It was our worst day, but you know what?
What's
What's not on this plaque is Alpha Company. Alpha Company lost 31 guys that day. 31 guys that were caught out in the open just like we were. They were a little bit too close to a tree line, and they suffered mightily. In fact, I should have brought it, but there's a headline from the LA Times that VC decimates American company. Huge block letter headlines. And they never reported. In that article, they failed to report that the American forces that day took out 250 VC.
Wow.
So we hammered them, but it was at a very costly price.
Alpha Company, we had to get situation reports. That's how many killed, how many, and their response was, we have 10 survivors. The rest of them were killed or wounded. It's 160 guys, and they have 10 that are still walking out of the field.
You know, before we go, because we could go on forever, what can we do, people like Dave and I, that have not served our country, to honor what you've done? Like, what do you want from what would make you, as veterans of what you've went through? Is it just respect?
Just take us to dinner.
I was going to say enlist. No,
They don't want us anymore.
Oh, they say I'm too old.
No, seriously, first, well, you can buy the book. I mean, that would be great.
I'm absolutely buying that book.
You know, to honor the people who are serving today. When we came home, we were spit on, and literally.
Garbage thrown at us.
Yeah,
Called baby killers when we come through San Francisco Airport.
But we need to honor today's troops because what they're doing today, I mean, I tell you how brave they are for any one of them. You said you had a son in the Navy? For him to enlist, I mean, I had no intentions of enlisting in anything. I had a great job, I had a good life, and I was drafted. And I was bound and determined to do my job because my dad was a World War II veteran, you know, the greatest generation. So I was proud of my dad, and I wanted to be a buck sergeant like Dad, and I was. But the American public did not appreciate us. Took many years. I would say about the mid '80s it started changing. But to honor today's troops, that's all we can do.
Respect our troops, respect America.
Yes.
If you've seen enough World War II footage to see what bombing does to cities, I decided that when a couple of my friends went to Canada, that I couldn't do that. I had to serve because I didn't want the war coming to my doorstep. I'll go to its doorstep.
Yeah.
But I don't want it decimating our homeland.
Guys, we really appreciate what you have done.
You guys are amazing. Thank you
and what you've
so
gone
much.
through. Thank you so much. The book is The Boys of '67. I'm sure it's available Amazon, anywhere else you want to go.
Barnes & Noble.
Barnes & Noble. You definitely want to do that. And then, of course, the documentary is going to come out next year on the National Geographic channel.
Yeah.
Larry?
Read that book. You'll be right there with us.
Yeah.
It's 100%. It's not BS.
I'm going to get it today.
My wife said that as she read it, it was like looking at a movie before her eyes. It's written so well.
Great. Well, will you guys come back?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We want you to come back because there are so many stories, and We definitely want to be able to honor this, and most importantly, honor these guys
Yes.
right here. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Very much. We
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
having us.